What's up, babes? So I'm here making another video, another weekly video on why you should read Solo Leveling is what I'm going with this week. I'm gonna turn this one into a series because I am reading more and more manga. I also need to get more invested with reading more watching more anime, and I think I'm gonna start doing something where I watch the first season of an anime. So if you have any recommendations for animes that maybe I should watch, I'll watch the first season and then I'll judge if it's even worth continuing, what I think about it so far. But I think that's just kind of a quick way. The reason I kind of like the the manga is I can just binge read like so quickly. Watching like 30-minute episodes just feels somewhat tedious, but I'm gonna do it. So anyway, I also want to make more videos on games. Um, I wanted to make a video comparing Twilight and Skyward Sword because it's a debate I have with people a lot on which game's better. Just ranking like certain Zelda games and stuff like that. So that's definitely something I'm going to get into as well. I also got a haircut, which is nice because that shit was getting too shaggy. But let's get into why I think you should read Solo Leveling. So to start, when I started reading it, it was actually a recommendation from my friend Andrew, who recommended it to me when I was streaming. And they were like, have you ever heard of Solo Leveling? And I was like, no, I haven't. But come to find out, I've actually saw some ads. I don't know if they were YouTube ads or something, but I had seen it before on like ads. And usually whenever you get like an ad on a website or something like that, it's usually a garbage anime. It's usually not a very good manga. But I started reading it and I started looking at the scenes, and early on I would say it's a little bit more tame. It could take a little bit to get into, but then it hits a certain point, and if you've read it, then you know the point I'm talking about, which is, I think, decently early on. I want to say it's within like 20 chapters. Something interesting with Solo Leveling does too is it feels more like a comic than a manga, because it's not really like, sometimes it's like solid paneling and what you see from a traditional manga, but this one is kind of more of a comic strip, it feels like, which, trying to think of like a better way to describe it, but it doesn't feel like as boxy as a manga is. You still read it the same way, everything's the same. It just feels more like a comic. A lot, along with the art style too. I think it's generated electronically. I don't think it's being drawn. The reason I think that, and I did not do my research, so I'm kind of just spitting here, but a lot of the textures and designs that they make, I'm like, there's no way someone's drawing that week to week, and they're still releasing weekly chapters. I just read the most recent chapter of this week, and what impresses me the most in any manga or anime is the ability to world build. And this is not something that I expected from Solo Leveling starting it. It talks about going into like dungeons, which are basically these like portals you enter with a little group, and it's kind of like how some people make a living, and you get ranked based off how good you are. So the main character that way, Sung Jin Woo, is just a random kid. He's known as the weakest hunter, or the like, he sucks. And whenever he goes into a dungeon, everyone's like, oh, thank God he's here. That means the mission's not too bad, because they're risking their lives for loot that they can sell and make a profit that way. But usually the lower ranking hunters don't do it as well. And he's very low ranking. He is his dad's out of the picture until maybe spoilers, but maybe a little bit more recently. Parents in anime and manga, they always come back. That's always the thing. You will always see a main character's mother and father, or at least know their story. But the mom's super sick. The mom is like unable. She's been in this comatose state for years now, and his sister's going to school. So he's just trying to make some money, trying to make it happen. But every single dungeon or portal he enters with people, he always ends up getting messed up. And they're like, why are you doing this? Like, why do you keep doing this? And he keeps just trudging on and trying to make as much money as he can, but he's not making that much money. So fast forward to the scene, and I'll explain it. Just because it is early on, it's not much of a spoiler. It's going to just entice you if you would like to read it. But early on, they get in this situation where they have these readings where they can tell like how dangerous a dungeon is. And they read this one and they're like, this one's not too dangerous. He's like a D rank. So it's like, okay, we can enter this, or E rank. we can enter this, it's not a big deal. They enter it, and it turns out to be like a surprise. And this happens so much in this series, I find it hilarious that they like rank it a certain way, and then it's like, wait a minute, this one's actually way stronger. And then you get trapped in there. You have to like go through, you get your loot, and you have to kill the final boss of the place. And once that happens, the gate closes. And once the gate closes, nobody can go back in there. You have your loot, everything happens. But he goes in there, kind of being the wimp. And the people with him, especially like long-term standing, are very weak too. And they get to a point where there's an enemy who's just obliterating people. And when I say obliterating people, this manga gets pretty gruesome, which I very much like. But yeah, they just start slaughtering people, and he gets put in this weird situation where at this point, like these dungeon dwellers, like kind of like a Goblin Slayer-esque thing going on here, I like, but I don't normally love. I kind of like more adventure, not slice of life manga. And this isn't really a slice of life, but it's kind of more of like what seems like a grinder. So at first I was like, I don't know. But then after this scene, he gets put in this situation where he wakes up after about to be killed, because he made a sacrifice for the rest of his team so that they could escape, and then he gets like killed. But right before he dies, it asks him if he wants to be a player. And a player, which is why it's called solo leveling, is someone that can level up. So most of the time with your ranks, like you can buy more expensive equipment. There's like all that stuff with the equipment and ranking system, but nobody can level up. There's things known as awakenings. So this was his awakening. And in it, no other hunter can really level up as they go. So him just defeating things, he'll level up, and then he can increase like base stats like intelligence, strength, all that stuff. And he goes through learning, like, because he goes strength at first because he's used to being a wimp, and he's slowly figuring it out. Now what's also really cool is they give him like daily missions. So it's kind of like that video game type of thing, where I think he has to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and a 10-kilometer run like every day. So the first day he was like, screw that, I'm not going to do it. He just got out of the hospital from being in that dungeon and almost dying, and he's all confused. And he doesn't do it, so it teleports him to some random universe where like all these giant centipedes are trying to kill him, and he just has to survive for 4 hours. So then after that, he decides to do it every single day, and he slowly just starts getting stronger and stronger. But he starts out as the weakest, but slowly, and the whole thing I think has only been 2 months, he just starts amping up. And what my favorite thing about it is him amping up meant a couple things to the story, to the series. It meant world building, it meant more characters, and you keep thinking that like, okay, like he's gonna like level off at a moment, because they introduce like S rank hunters, which are like crazy. There's national ranked hunters, which are even above them. But you're like, okay, he's gonna level off, like, because he kind of has to fight these people, but he just does not stop. And he finds out ways, because his intelligence is increasing along with a lot of his other base stats, how to level up fast. And it starts kind of stressful, but he's like, I'm kind of used to dying, or like being close to death. So like these situations, now that I'm a little bit stronger, they don't bother me as much. He starts getting certain weapons. I'm not crazy into the whole weapons and potion stuff, but I am into his ability that he gets later on when he starts to become very, very broken. And it's when he can start to kill people, and then what he does is he like brings them back and makes them a part of his shadow army, which is that picture. And that, in my opinion, is when it gets really good, because he like will barely beat some crazy dungeon boss that everyone's like, no, he can't beat him. He beats him, and then he makes him his own guy. And as that goes on, he just gets more and more broken. Him himself gets stronger and stronger throughout the entire series, and it's crazy. The part that we're at now, I don't want to spoil, but it's very much an endgame situation, and I think it's probably gonna end because they finally hit you with like what seems like the final information drop, where they try to give you everything before they are just like, well, it's over now. But it looks like it's coming to the finale. He's crazy, stupid strong. What he does with his summonings, what he does with his intelligence, like when he outsmarts people, the fights are awesome. It looks really good. A lot of it, or all of it, is in color too. So that's kind of why I think of it more of as a comic as well, is because it's in color. And it looks very good. It's very good. There's a whole like syndicate or operation in Tokyo that they try to regulate hunters, send people certain places, and then you start to get in the whole world, and that's where we're at now. where it started just in Tokyo, like how to deal with certain things. He's overcome the odds so much. But what's interesting is I thought he was gonna kind of go under the radar the whole time, but they figured his ass out, and they're like, there's something weird about you. And so people like are after him. They want to kill him, but with his intelligence, with his grinding, because he'll just disappear for weeks training, training. And I'm like, yes, if I was in that same situation, I would go train. So it's really interesting to see that. There's a lot of good side characters who, like at the very beginning, would destroy him, but because he's getting more and more broken, he becomes worse. There's these guilds. The guilds are cool because like they will buy certain gates and decide that they want to do those, and like there's guild leaders. He becomes a guild leader in a little bit into the series after people kind of start to figure out what's going on with him, and then you just find out it's like he doesn't need anyone, which is my favorite thing because he's just broken, and he becomes more and more broken. But where we're at now, he kind of finally met his match, which is awesome and interesting. I look forward to seeing where it's going. But I would very much recommend reading it. I think either they're coming out with an anime or they might have the first season. My problem with anime is always like the first season is normally like 20 chapters. Like it's really not that much. You can't even really delve too into it. That was my problem kind of with Demon Slayer, but it's really good. I like how he uses the whole Shadow Army thing. I like how he makes decisions on if he wants to protect certain people, if they deserve death, but he's very fair, and he's just kind of like, he turns almost into an omnipotent god, where it's just, he makes all the decisions. He makes all these situations work out because he is that strong, and nobody believes in him. But he has, look at that picture. He doesn't even sweat because he's just so used to almost being dead. He's like, now I'm strong. Now it doesn't matter, and it's just really interesting. In fact, I wanted to get a picture of it, but I thought that one was better. He doesn't even look like that at the beginning. At the beginning, he looks like different, and then he slowly like changes because he is like growing and getting stronger. For some reason, his whole look changes. He gets taller. It's good. So if you like that kind of manga, like video game-esque, I say esque because it's kind of like the dungeon thing, which I said I'm not that big of a fan of. The video game thing, which I'm like, but they do it so well, and the set pieces with some of these fights are amazing. Whether he's fighting a monster, a giant, or just a normal person trying to escape or keep some information to himself, it's just so interesting how they never stop amping it up, how there always seems to be a cool fight happening every at least like 10 chapters, if not more, and just how crazy the guy gets grinding and grinding and grinding. So definitely watch or read it. That's it for this video. I definitely am going to think about more. Shout out to Avenger Spencer for making the thumbnail on the last one. I don't know if he's making this one, hopefully, but we'll see. I'm also reading Raid Master again. I'm going to give you why you should read that one in a little bit. That'll probably be in a couple weeks. But I don't even know what I'm going to do next week. Anyway, if you liked it, subscribe, like, comment if you have any anime recommendations for that thing. I'll probably start with Jujutsu Kaisen. That could be next week. Who knows? But thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.